Welcome to Real World, Real Talk with Dr. D.Z. Cofield. The show represents captivating conversations and insightful information to encourage and inspire you with all you need to become the best you can possibly be. And now, your host for Real World, Real Talk, Dr. D.Z. Cofield.
Welcome to Real World, Real Talk. I'm your host, Dr. D.Z. Cofield, Senior Pastor at the Good Hope Missionary Baptist Church. I want to welcome you to the Choice 90.9 KTSU, your community station, and KTSUradio.com. And of course, you can follow me on all social media platforms. We are in the midst of the holiday season, and one of the things that increases during the holiday season is drinking of alcoholic beverages, the recreational use of drugs and pharmaceutical products, legally and illegally. And today I want to raise awareness around this. One of the things that we see happening during this time of the year in particular is the number of DUIs and DWIs, those offenses going up. And when those offenses go up, we not only see arrests going up, but we also see accidents going up. We see property damage going up. We see the loss of life going up. And we want to make sure that we give you the information that you need so that you don't fool yourself, so that you look out not just for yourself, but look out for others who may be having a good time at your house, making sure that you don't let them leave under the influence, and make sure that everybody has a safe holiday season. So today we want to talk about celebrating Christmas in a sober way. And it doesn't mean you can't have fun. It doesn't mean you can't have a good time, but it does mean you need to be careful. While many Christmas parties have been canceled, people are still gathering with small groups of friends, and people are still getting in vehicles, driving with a buzz. And if you're driving with a buzz, you're driving under the influence. And we want to make sure that you're not endangering yourself or anybody else. I'm happy to have with me today two people who can share with us from a level of expertise around this matter. First, we have Sergeant Stephen Woodard. Sergeant Woodard has been in law enforcement for more than 17 years, 12 years as a DPS trooper. Upon graduating from the Texas State Troopers Academy in Austin, he was assigned to the Texas Highway Patrol Division in Manville, Texas. After a competitive selection process, he was promoted to sergeant. Sergeant Woodard serves as an active member of a number of duly related organizations, including as a board member for Mothers Against Drunk Driving. We really appreciate him coming because he's going to be able to give us some legal information, criminal information around the differences, for example, between driving under the influence and driving while intoxicated. And we're happy to have him with us today. And then we're happy to have with us Kendall Collette. Kendall is a native Houstonian. She graduated from the University of Houston with a degree in human development and family studies. She worked for the state of Texas Child Care Licensing Department, and she began working with MAD in March of 2015. Her friend was a victim advocate in the Houston office and told her about the available position. After researching the organization, she knew it would be a fulfilling and meaningful career. She started as a coordinator of volunteer resources and recently became the volunteer resources director for the state of Texas. Man, I am so happy to have these two people with us on tonight to share with us information that you, I think, would benefit from hearing. Let's bring our guests in on today, and that's none other than Kendall Collette and Sergeant Stephen Woodard. All right, let me get him in. Sergeant Woodard, welcome to Real World, Real Talk. Let's talk a little bit about this holiday season. What are some of the things that you've seen over the years when you talk about driving and drinking during the holidays? What's some of the big concerns that you have?
Well, what's interesting is, of course, during the holiday season, unfortunately, the DWIs they pick up because everybody's celebrating, they're partying, rightfully so. Everybody's out having a good time, enjoying their family. But this year, I don't think there's going to be a change because if you think about it, Dr. Cofield, what we're seeing, of course, is less traffic on the roadway. But think about this. When there's less traffic, some people take advantage of that. When the roads are open, that means the foot pedal opens up. People get on the roadway and they try to get to that destination a lot quicker. As a state police, the Texas Highway Patrol, and other law enforcement agencies, our primary job and function is to ensure that you get from point A to B safely and back from B to A safely, and you don't harm yourself and harm others. I'll tell you this, and let's get this disclaimer out of the way. There's no stipend or quota or anything like that for DWIs. For the fact of the matter, Dr. Cofield, when I was just a trooper in Harris County, several times I would lead the district in DWI enforcement, and no one sent a check or a stipend to my house saying, "Hey, congratulations, Trooper Woodard, on getting all those DWIs." It's part of the job, and part of the job is to ensure that the public is safe. Now, I will throw this out there to you. Harris County leads the nation. That's right, the nation in DWI fatalities. We have more people that die from the cause or contributing factor of an individual being intoxicated right here in Harris County than any other area in the United States. That's something to think about. And one thing that I presented to folks all the time, even not only our community, but when I'm teaching our law enforcement officers, I was just at the Houston Police Department yesterday, well, all week, teaching their young officers that driving is the most dangerous thing that actually you and I can do every day. So we want to ensure that folks, they travel safely, because we have enough going on in this world than to worry about funeral arrangements or hospital bills or et cetera for one of our loved ones getting into a crash that involves alcohol or a controlled substance or whatever the case may be.
Sergeant Woodard, if you will, give us some insight into the difference between a DUI and a DWI, because sometimes we'll use those interchangeably. And I'm just wondering for our audience if there's a significant difference and what that difference is.
Believe it or not, Pastor, that question comes up all the time. So if you go to some of our other neighboring states, like let's take Mississippi, for instance, they say DUI. California, DUI. Here in Texas, we have DWI and DUI. So with the DUI, that's for individuals that are over the age of 21, that are or whatever. They're totally intoxicated. They have an alcohol concentration or alcohol level of 0.08 or more. And we see signs of intoxication when we do our test. They're going to be classified as driving while intoxicated. It's DUI. Before I get to hence DWI. But let me say this. So the average driver, their blood alcohol concentration should be a 0.08. Well, let me say this for our truck driving friends, because a lot of people, matter of fact, pretty much everybody that I know listens to KTSU. If you're a truck driver, your blood alcohol concentration is 0.04. I mean, a lot more responsibility when you're driving a big 18-wheeler. But for DUI, that pertains to our kiddos. What parents need to realize is this. If your child has a detectable amount of alcohol on their breath, they're going to be classified as DUI. Now, we all know you can drink a half a glass of wine and not be impaired, so to speak. But with the kiddo, they have just a detector. If we just smell the alcohol without even testing on their breath, they'll be listed as DUI, and we don't need that. Now, here's something that's unique. I tell parents this all the time. especially when we have these big parties for graduations, the celebration of our kiddo graduating, maybe high school, or maybe the team went to the playoffs in high school, and mom or dad, they want to be the cool parent, whatever, and that's fine. I have a son right now who's 16 years old, and he's a really, really good football player. But here's the deal with being the cool parent. State law says you can provide your child with alcohol, but Dr. Cofield, that's your child. And when we're talking about social hosting, you can't provide anyone else's child alcohol. Meaning, if all of your kiddos' friends come over this holiday season for like a little small Christmas party or whatever you decide to do, you can't provide someone else's child alcohol. I don't care if you take all of the keys, place them in a bowl, and put them in a lockbox. Can't provide another person's child alcohol. It's against state law. And guess what, Dr. Cofield? Even though that is not a driving infraction, your license will be suspended. And somebody asks, well, wait a minute, how can my license get suspended and I'm not driving? Well, a driver's license is privilege. So that's part of the mandate. Pastor, I feel like the Grinch over here. Good grief.
No. I don't want you to be the Grinch. I tell you what,
Okay, because look, this goes for everybody. This goes for yourself, me, whatever. I mean, here's the deal. Here I am. I'm a Texas State Trooper. I've always wanted to be a Texas State Trooper ever since I was a little bitty boy. And this is a childhood dream to me. If I go out, enjoy, me and my wife go to a beautiful dinner, I have too much, I have my pistol inside of my vehicle, I'm a law enforcement officer, and I make that unfortunate choice or decision to drive, I'll face consequences. Not only if I'm deemed to be intoxicated, guess what? There's going to be an extension to that charge because I'm carrying a weapon. Police officer or not. So we're all in the same boat. This is just a career that I've chose. And one of the things that I love about the career is to educate the people. Because the only way we're going to reduce these fatalities in this state, Dr. Cofield, is three things. Number one, enforcement. Got to get out there and enforce. Roadway engineering. We need to make sure our roads are safe to drive. And education, to me, which is the most important piece. Because the education part, we can kind of talk before, during, and after, so folks won't make those unfortunate choices.
Yeah. Let's bring in Kendall Collette from Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Miss Kendall, how are you?
I'm doing well. Can you hear me?
We can hear you great.
Past this, I almost jumped up.
Yes.
Fantastic. Good. Kendall, tell us about Mothers Against Drunk Driving. I don't think there is another organization that is better known for their stance and their position on driving while intoxicated than Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Give us the history for those who may not know.
Sure. And thank you so much again, Dr. Cofield, for having us. We find oftentimes that there are a lot of misconceptions about MAD, or that people have heard of us, but they don't really know what we do or what our programs entail. So we were founded back in 1980 by a single mom in California. As one of her daughters was walking down the sidewalk, she was hit and killed by a repeat drunk driving offender who served less than a year in prison. Back then, there just weren't many laws in effect for impaired driving. So this mom founded the MAD organization as a way to get her foot in the door legislatively and to raise public awareness. So we've been around for 40 years now. We still work within legislation. We're always trying to raise awareness, but we have several other programs and services that we provide now as well. We have a 4-part mission statement: to end drunk driving, fight against drugged driving, serve the victims of these violent crimes, and prevent underage drinking. And like I said, we go into schools and we talk to young people, we talk to parents, we work to support law enforcement for their efforts and their courage out on the roads to keep us safe from impaired drivers. Our main focus is victim services. We can provide victims with anything from court accompaniment to helping them with an application for crime victim compensation, which again, a lot of people don't realize exists. But when talking about these misconceptions, we find that oftentimes people think that because we work at MAD, that means we're anti-alcohol. And like Sergeant Woodard was saying, we're not anti-alcohol. If a person is 20 years of age or older and legally eligible to drink alcohol, MAD has no issue with that until a person makes an attempt to operate a motor vehicle. That's when it becomes a problem.
Yeah. Let me just go through some facts here that I think our audience needs to hear, because so many times when you think about drunk driving, you think about the person who is, as we would use the term, sloppy drunk. They can barely walk to their car. They're dropping their keys and they get behind the steering wheel. And of course, that does happen. Yeah. But more often than not, that's not the case. Impairment is not reliant upon the type of alcohol consumed, rather the number of drinks over a certain period of time. Yep. And despite myths and misconceptions that coffee, cold showers, or exercise will make you sober, the truth is only time will. So, Sergeant Woodard and Ms. Collette, I want you to address that issue in terms of the type of alcohol consumed, because you have people, who talk about liquor is quicker, and they drink hard alcohol, but they don't think they can get drunk or impaired drinking beer or drinking wine, for example.
Dr. Cofield, I tell you what, liquor is quicker. I haven't heard that in a long time. So real quick, and I tell you what, me and Kendall, we've been working together for so long. It's almost like Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, because we just mesh off each other so well. But I will say this, alcohol affects everybody differently. The size, age, weight, gender, all of that that's the differences. My mother, bless her heart, she can drink half a glass of wine, her doctor, and let me tell you something, she's tore from the floor.
That's me.
Everybody's different.
Sure.
I got an uncle. He can do what he does, and man, he's saying, "Where's the next one?" So it affects tolerance. Did you eat? Look, what medications are you on? All of this plays a factor. And I'll say this before I throw the ball to Kendall. I've been in situations to where I've had an individual that met the criteria of being intoxicated. And let me tell you something, they're below that 0.08. They're 6. Well, here's the definition of intoxication. Does that individual have the normal use of the mental and physical faculties while operating a motor vehicle? So again, liquor could be quicker, but it affects everyone differently. And of course, amount is a huge portion, but tolerance, age, what you have, what some of the underlying conditions, all of that plays a factor. That's why we need to be mindful of what we're drinking and how we're doing it. One of the things that we're also seeing during our celebrations are these mixtures. I have a cousin that can make an eggnog. Good grief. Once you finish, you're going to say, "Hey, cuz, do you have a room somewhere I can sleep?" Because he's made this potion that has nothing to do with what was already originally made, or that original recipe. He's just added. Be mindful of what you're drinking and what you're participating in, because you'll be surprised. It could affect you in a way unimaginable. Kendall?
Absolutely. And a lot of organizations it almost looks like a wheel that you can spin it, and you can put in your gender, your weight, your, how many drinks you had, and it will kind of give you an idea of what your BAC is. And as we just heard from Sergeant Woodard, it doesn't work that way. It's not across the board. It's not the same for everybody. I'm that person that if I have half a glass of wine, I'm done. I'm asleep within 20 minutes and I'm done for the night. So it's just different for everybody. You can't gauge it that way, especially when we talk about people who are underage, because their bodies are not built to process and tolerate alcohol. So like Sergeant Woodard was saying earlier, about the zero tolerance policies for people that are underage. Those are there for a very specific reason. The way alcohol impacts us as adults is going to be very different than the way it impacts a person who's underage.
So Sergeant Woodard, I want to go back just for a moment when you talk about the person who may be physically impaired, but their blood alcohol count is below the limit. Would that person still be classified as driving while intoxicated, even though their blood alcohol count is not at that 0.08 number?
Pastor, you asked some questions. You hit the points that people very rarely ask. Absolutely, because here's the thing: when an individual goes into that arrest phase, we don't know roadside what the blood alcohol concentration is. We'll have to either wait for the blood to come back from the actual lab, or we'll get a breath specimen on an intoxicalizer machine. But we're looking at the facts on the roadway. And again, we go back to the definition of intoxication. Does that individual have the mental and physical faculties to operate a motor vehicle? Can they operate a motor vehicle safely? And we have a lot of folks that have been under, and because they could not tolerate the alcohol or whatever the substance is. Yeah, absolutely, we get them off the roadway. And I'll tell you this, doctor. We have individuals that are impaired, and this is starting to come up a lot, that are, especially with our teens, that are impaired, and there's not a odor of alcohol on the breath or body whatsoever, because we're finding that they're on some type of medication, whether that's Xanax or hydrocodone is a real good Soma. Those cocktails, those quick pilled cocktails that you can buy in the school system. You can get a hydrocodone right now on the streets from somebody from $7 to $10. And that's another thing that we as parents, we need to be mindful of our medications and mindful of those older and expired medications, because they can get into the wrong hands. So when we're talking about the broad spectrum of impairment, we're looking at not only just alcohol, but the medication impairments as well.
So driving while intoxicated will also, we term DWI, but driving while intoxicated is really, it sounds like more accurately defined as driving while impaired, whether it is liquor or a pharmaceutical product.
Sure. So the whole definition is not having the normal use of your mental and physical faculties by introduction of alcohol, controlled substance, a dangerous drug, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You hit it right on the head, Dr. Cofield.
Okay, here's another fact. On average, a drunk driver will drive 80 times under the influence before their first arrest. That to me is a crazy statistic. I mean, but I can first identify with that because I know a lot of people who have driven buzzed under some kind of influence. And it seems like getting home safely almost gives you this false sense of invincibility. Kendall, can you speak to that, please?
Absolutely. And we have that happen all the time. One of my responsibilities at MAD is to work with all of our community service workers, meaning they have gotten a DWI, or if they're underage, maybe a minor possession charge, and they're court mandated to come and complete community service hours with us. And I have worked with many young people and adults who have said, I didn't think I was that drunk. I didn't think there was going to be a problem. I, was just right down the street from my house. It's always been fine before. And they were just mortified at, the stigma that comes along with receiving a DWI and all of the court costs and the legal fees. We're talking a first-time DWI is between $10,000 and $17,000 now for that individual. So to talk to somebody they did something they've done, at least 80 times probably. They've never had any issues, but this was the one time where they got caught, and now they have to go through those consequences, and they're just shocked at what actually goes into that.
Man, let me just repeat that. You're talking about an expensive drink. $17,000 for a first time offense. That's Man, that's absolutely tremendous. I'll tell you a story. We had a gentleman who was arrested, a member of our church, who was arrested for his third offense. Now, this had taken place over like a 20-year period. And like you have described, he had clearly driven a number of times, intoxicated, just hadn't been pulled over. He gets his third offense, so he has this automatic sentence that he has to do. And, you know, his wife was very concerned. Sergeant, would it, and you being a church member, you would know this, right? Because she's like, hey, my husband's going to be away and people are going to be asking, where is he? And I don't know what to say. And so I just told him, I said, well, I tell you what, let's just cut it off. We're going to take away the opportunity for people to talk about it. And so I talked to him and I had him come before the church. And we just told him,
really?
Yeah, here's what happened. And, you know, this is his third offense. It's been over a 20-year period, but it doesn't matter. You know, there's no statute of limitations. You know, it doesn't drop off your record if you did it 10 years ago. It's there. And then I did something that was interesting, and it really shocked me, the response. I asked everyone who had driven while drinking to come up and pray with him. And we're going to stand in solidarity. And I asked ladies to come up, and we're going to stand in solidarity with his wife. And while he's gone, we're going to write him and we're going to encourage him. But we're also going to recognize that he has to be held accountable. Man, I probably had 50, 60 people come up to stand around him to pray. And it really let me know that this is a bigger problem than we realize it is. And so when I see this statistic that, you know, people have driven 80 times under the influence before they got arrested the first time, man, that's a scary number. Sergeant Woodard, when you set up those safety stops, and you know, and you do that on the holidays, New Year's, etc., what specifically are you all looking for? Because you're trying to make sure the roads stay safe in those instances.
So here in this state, we don't do, you know, checkpoints. You know, a lot of other states do, like, again, you know, states like Mississippi, California, et cetera. With us, we just get out and we increase enforcement. For example, we may start probably the week of Christmas, and we'll get out and just ensure that the roadways are safe. Our biggest problem right now here in the state is speed. You'll be surprised, Dr. Cofield, that just out of a speed, something it's as simple. Some people will think as simple as a speed violation. Next thing you know, it'll turn into something else. It could turn into a DWI arrest. It could turn into a human trafficking arrest. It could turn into an individual with a lot of drugs on them. Those small infractions sometimes lead to big things. But hopefully the goal is this, the volunteer compliance. And what I mean by that is this. You know, when you're driving down the road and you see that state trooper on the side of the road, or that police officer, deputy, and you're going a little fast and all of a sudden you kind of slow down, that's called volunteer compliance. Or when you're driving, when my grandmother was here, she just had something with seatbelts. And, you know, she would be driving down the road and she would see a police officer, and all of a sudden she would ease that seatbelt on. That's volunteer compliance. So that's what we're looking for. It is not a fun time arresting someone that is intoxicated. Let me give you some inside information. And this is just between us three. Hopefully, I mean, I don't know if there's anybody else going to listen to this. But so when we stop someone, I will say this: we look for attributes of driving behaviors of intoxication. Generally, it's speed, or generally it's someone going extremely too slow, not maintaining their lane, weaving in and out of the lane, whatever. We get them stopped. They can either be one or two things. Either they're intoxicated or they're texting on their phone. Let's just say, you know, God forbid that they're intoxicated. So we have to go through all this gamut of asking questions. How much did you have to eat? When was your last drink? Are you on any medication? After that, then we go into the standardized field sobriety test, which is looking at the eyes, looking at the body movements, seeing how they react to the simple motor skills, because that's what driving is. It's simple functioning motor skills. From there, based on a calculated matrix we use in layman's terms, we'll deem that person intoxicated. Here in Harris County, we can get the blood specimen from them, whether they want to give it or not. We can get a warrant for the blood to add to the case, and then we proceed on. I'm not even close to being done, Dr. Cofield. So now we have to take this individual to jail. Then we have to wait for the tow truck driver, because we just can't leave their vehicle on the side of the road. Now that's an extra payment added, because when the individual is actually booked out of jail, they have to find their car and all that stuff. I mean, who wants to go through this stuff? So now we have to take this individual to jail. That is not a pleasurable moment. All right. Because you're in the vehicle with this person. They're talking to you. They're complaining to you. Why do you have to do this? Don't you have other things to do?
Go catch some real criminals, right? Go catch some real.
Yeah. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. Sometimes it's very foul language, talking about our appearance. And, somebody said a drunk man doesn't tell any lies. Maybe I am ugly. I don't know. But I've been told that. So now we get this individual to the jail. And you and I believe, and Kendall understands this, that the amount of administrative paperwork, if you will, that involves that. We have to take the individual's license. And it's just a task for both parties. Of course, we're doing what we're doing to ensure that the roadways are safe, and this individual didn't kill themselves, someone else that evening or morning. But the aftermath, the monetary aftermath that Kendall talked about, and all the court proceedings, and I'm telling you now, it really isn't worth it. It's not worth it. The best advice I can give someone is to enjoy and drink responsibly. I know that's a cliche, but that is so true. It's just not worth it. And my prayer is to go into, and I know we say this every year, but this has been an interesting year. How many times we've said that? Go into the holidays, not in the jailhouse. Go into the holidays, not in the jail, or not having that burden of somebody in your family, everybody trying to scrounge up money to get you out of jail. And let me tell you something, Dr. Cofield, nobody's exempt. Nobody. We all have that responsibility if you take part in drinking, because I'm telling you, you could not only just be a jail docket number, you could be a fatality number. And we don't want to end the year like that. And I'm saying this from the heart. This is no script. I'm saying this from the heart. Drinking and driving does kill. And like my dad used to say, when you're gone, you're gone.
Yeah. Well, let me go to another fact. Every 51 minutes in America, someone is killed in a drunk driving crash. That equates to 27 people every day. That was the impetus behind MAD getting started. And I hear the tragic stories, and you see every year, you see news stories of drunk drivers, and it's always amazing to me that the people who were driving drunk many times come out of that accident relatively unscathed. Of course, they have to deal with their charges, etc. But you have innocent people who are losing their lives. And that's really what we're talking about. All of the other things we're talking about in terms of court fees and things like that, and attorney fees, and just the headache of having this on your record, those things are inconveniences.
Yes,
but
sir.
when we talk about somebody losing their life, Kendall, how do you help get that message across? How does MAD help get that message across? Because I'm sure that if you had a world that was free of drunk driving, MAD would gladly be put out of business. But because you have these kinds of statistics, there's still a need for the organization to sound the alarm, to blow the horn, to say, hey, we've got a problem here. Tell me how you all are trying to address this.
Sure. So MAD is founded on a foundation of grassroots. We're a grassroots organization that rely very heavily on our volunteers. When MAD first started, as a way for this mother, like I said, to get her foot in the door legislatively, it was a bunch of people with picket signs, walking around in circles in front of the courthouses and the Capitol buildings and such. We don't necessarily do it that way anymore, but that's how we started. So we are always trying to raise awareness, because one of the things we say all the time is this is a crime that is 100% preventable. There's no need for any loss of life due to something that is so preventable. We do speak within legislation. We have every 2 years when Texas legislation meets, we have what we call Lobby Day. And we go to Austin and we support legislation and we fight for that. We have all of our, awareness events, our fundraising activities out in the communities. We go into schools, businesses for presentations. We attend health and safety fairs where we set up a booth with information. We as an organization, whether it be as staff or with our volunteers, we try to get out into the community as much as possible to continue reminding people, it's 2020. We all know how dangerous it is to drive while impaired. Like you said, people do it every day. We see loss of life, at least one person every 51 minutes. And we still have people drinking and driving 80 times before they get caught the first time. We know how risky this is. We know how dangerous it is, but people still make this choice every single day. So trying to get out there, trying to, create new laws, support law enforcement, raise awareness, just get that word out. We're just hopeful that we'll see these numbers decrease, especially the number of victims that are impacted because of this.
So let me ask you all a question, and I'd like both of you to address this. We're living in times that we've never lived in before. We're seeing a lot of our social contact going down. And in particular, this time of the year, a lot of Christmas parties and things are going down. But I know of a lot of people who have said, they're drinking more than they ever have, self-medicating, just trying to handle the stress of the economic crisis, social injustice, COVID-19, and the impact that it's having on their lives. Are we seeing numbers kind of stay the same? Are numbers going up? Do we have more to be concerned about, less to be concerned about? And whichever one of you would like to tackle that first.
When you talk about, of course, the pandemic, social injustice, monetary, economic burdens, yeah, it's there. I mean, Pastor, turn on your TV. It's there. Every day that there's something, whether it's domestically, whether it's a domestic dispute between, that's something that, we really can't control what goes on within the four walls of individual homes. But I mean, people are really at an uneasy atmosphere right now. I seen a man and a woman in Target. This was Sunday, and they're just arguing over, it was something silly, whatever it was, over a shirt. And just people are just, a lot of folks are at uneased right now. The self-medicated portion, I'm seeing that as well. As far as statistically in the reports, not really sure where we're at right now. I won't know until we talk again, maybe at the beginning of next year, maybe February. But I would truly say that a lot of the DWI arrests are going up. Just because there's a pandemic, that doesn't mean that we as law enforcement, we're not making contact with people, because, we have families to go home to as well. Think about this, we still have to get out and make sure that the public is safe. and we're making contact with individuals that, we don't know if this individual is going to harm us, number one. But number two, between the both of us, talking about this violation or transaction, we still have, a pandemic going on that we don't want to bring that to our homes. So it's a mixture of a lot of things. What I will say is this: it's going to take all of us as a community to have these conversations. I'll tell you right now, Pastor, I've never heard, and I've been going to church for a very long time, as long as I can remember, of a leader of a church to bring up a member to give that testimony. And we all know testimonies are designed to get things off the heart and to help others.
Yeah.
We take a lot of that out of context. Don't be telling folks your business at church and all that. We know, me and you can talk about that for a long time. But it's designed to get things off of your heart and to help others. And I've never heard of anyone having somebody put out their criminal aspect of their life to help others. We need to have these conversations. And this can be done around the dinner table. It can be done just hanging out, watching a movie. But I need to go back to our kiddos. Our teens, especially if you have one of your precious jewels going to college. Let me tell you something. Between us three, little Johnny and little Tiffany, they ain't as good as you think they are. So we need to have these conversations to reduce the fatalities, reduce the violations, and that way we can, I don't think we'll ever be able to put an organization like MAD just out, because this will always be here and will always be around. And unfortunately, Pastor, you're going to always have these conversations. But let's try to reduce in our community. I can't do it alone. Of course, Kendall and her staff, they sure can't do it alone. And Pastor, we're going to need more than just your voice. It's got to be that voice in the home to help us. And it all stems from education, period. Yeah. Hey, Pastor, real quick. When you're riding around in that fine vehicle you have, you see that trooper, he's driving and you slow down. Guess what you do, Pastor? As soon as you pass him, you speed right back up. It's education. We have to educate ourselves, because us three, we only can do so much, which this is a lot, but it takes the community as a whole. That's just my tidbit.
Kendall, I want you to talk a little bit about the conversations that family members need to have. To Sergeant Woodard's point, whether it's driving while intoxicated, driving under the influence, drunk driving, family members being designated drivers. I've never had one of my children call me to say, "Hey, Dad, I had too much to drink." But I tell you what, if they ever did have too much to drink, even now, and all three of my children are grown, I'd get out of the bed in the middle of the night to go get them.
Sure.
How do you instruct families to have those conversations? To Sergeant Woodard's point, the 15 or 16-year-old that you think is an angel, who may be going into your liquor cabinet or going into the liquor cabinet of a friend's house, when they go over there, underage drinking, which is a problem, or even if they're grown and they're drinking. How are you having families have those conversations? What kind of advice do you give them?
Absolutely. So as a part of our Power of Youth and Power of Parents program, one of the things that we explain to the parents is that 74% of teenagers have said that their parents are their number one influence when it comes to drugs and alcohol. So we really want to make sure that when we're speaking to these adults, that we are educating them on the risks associated with underage drinking, the risks associated with riding in the vehicle with somebody else who's impaired, alcohol poisoning, all of these things. And we can provide resource materials with conversation starters and tips, on how to handle these conversations. But ultimately, as a parent, we all have different parenting styles. We all do things differently within our homes, but we want to talk about risks. We want to talk about expectations. We want to talk about making a plan. This is important for everybody, underage, 21 and up. If we can spend 5-10 minutes thinking about what we're going to wear before we go out, why not take a couple of minutes to think about how we're going to get around safely? How are we going to get home safely? So we push the idea of making a plan with everybody. But when we're talking about young people, the human brain doesn't finish developing until a person is in their mid-20s. The part of the brain that develops last is the part that is most negatively impacted by alcohol consumption. Biology has shown us that our bodies are not built to process and tolerate alcohol until we are at least 21. That's why the legal drinking age is what it is. In fact, it was actually in 1984, the president at the time was Ronald Reagan. He signed that mandate requiring all 50 states to increase their legal drinking age to 21. And the founder of MAD was standing next to him as he signed that mandate. It was a very big moment for the MAD organization. And please believe we have that blown up picture just about everywhere you look within the MAD organization. So we are big advocates for really kind of challenging parents to have these conversations, because it can be uncomfortable. It can be awkward. Sometimes as parents, we don't know what to say. One thing we hear from parents all the time is, well, how can I tell my child not to drink when I drank when I was their age?
Yeah.
And as a parent, like I said, we all have different styles. It's up to you. You could use that and you can say, I drank when I was your age. These are the negative consequences that I received, or this is what I don't want to see happen to you. We've had students lose college scholarships. We have had kids kicked out of schools, spend, X amount of time locked up, in jail or in prison. There are so many things to talk about that we just want to make sure these conversations are happening in the home.
Yeah. No, I think that's absolutely tremendous. Sergeant Woodard, I want you to speak to this. Between 50 to 75% of the people who have had their licenses revoked due to driving under the influence or while intoxicated drive illegally without their license. That's a scary thought. And I know that some people may say, well, I've got to get to work. I've got to take care of my family. But it's amazing how many people were arrested for driving while intoxicated who get arrested again because they don't understand there's a difference and a distinction between ability and authority. Without the license, you don't have the authority, right? You may still have the ability, but you don't have the authority. Can you speak to that statistic and why it's important for people who drink and drive? If you've lost your license or it has been suspended for driving while intoxicated, that you shouldn't be driving?
Well, here's the deal. There's a process. So your license privileges, of course, are suspended. In this state, will allow you to get an occupational license once you go through your ALR hearing, and the state kind of puts you in that window and they approve you to get an occupational license. But the only thing about that occupational license is there's some restrictions involved that a lot of people, it's really not comfortable, or don't, for the lack of better terms, they don't like to adhere to. An occupational license specifically tells that individual, okay, you only can go from home to work or home to church. It's very limited. The occupational license will also lay out the time of day you can drive and the direction of travel. So there are some benefits out there for you when you lose your driving privileges, so you can get back to work. Because here's the deal: you get a DWI, your license is suspended. The state still understands that, hey, you have to go to work. Those fines that you accrued have to be paid, so they'll allow you to do that, but up under very stringent punishment factor. So that's out there. The occupational order also says that you must carry that on you at all times. And if it's not on you, then it's a Class B offense, which is the same thing as getting a DWI, first offense. So those, I guess, benefits, if you will, are there for the individual that made the mistake. But you can't go from your home to the club or from your home to that Christmas party, because that's not what the order states. Again, when you make those choices and those privileges are taken away from you, not only the license, but where you can go. So we again tell people, don't put yourself in that situation. It's not worth it.
If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Real World, Real Talk. I'm Dr. DZ Cofield. You're listening to The Choice 90.9 KTSU on your FM dial and ktsuradio.com. This is a show that in many ways, I feel like we can do over and over again, because no matter how many times we do the show, the message just doesn't seem to get through to some people. They just seem to feel like they're invincible, that they can drink and drive. They haven't gotten caught. It happens to somebody else. What would you like to say to our audience as we close, as we lean into this holiday season? Again, with all of the stress and everything that's going on, my wife and I have kind of made a pact that, we stopped watching the news for a season, because it was just stressful and depressing just watching the news. What do you say to people who are listening? Because I think one of the greatest tragedies is not just to see property damaged or somebody injured or somebody killed because of drunk driving, but to know, as you stated earlier, Kendall, that this is 100% preventable, that it didn't have to happen. And I'm just afraid, thinking through the numbers of people that I know are listening to this show, that statistically somebody who's listening is going to be in this situation and they're going to have to make a choice. And I'm hoping that they make a good choice. So what would you all like to say to our audience as we get ready to close today?
Absolutely.
Kendall, we'll start with you.
So we just always want to encourage people to make a plan, think it through. I know that the holidays are going to look different for everybody this year with everything going on. You might be at home with your immediate family. You might be able to go out and spend time with additional family members within a pod quarantine that you've been working with. However you are able to celebrate this holiday, let's keep it a joyous and uplifting occasion. Let's be smart. Let's plan ahead. We work with so many who have lost loved ones, parents who have lost children, which goes against nature. No parent should ever have to deal with the loss of a child, especially when, like you said, it's 100% preventable. People losing spouses, parents, friends, siblings. It's just nonsense. It really is. So we want to encourage people to make a plan, be smart, think about other people out on the roads, not just yourself. And let's keep it as uplifting of a holiday as we possibly can, coming together in whatever way that we can.
All right. Sarge?
Well, as always, don't forget the reason for the season. A young lady has a song out that I love, and she said, don't forget the baby. So we all know that aspect of it. But, choices, not only for this Christmas season, but throughout the year. Because Kendall hit something that, I forgot to mention, and I speak of this when I go talk to the colleges. Myself and Kendall, we've gone and talked to professional sports organizations. They've allowed us to go into their locker rooms and talk about the consequences of drinking and driving. It is important. It is something that has become the norm. You see a crash on television, and next thing you know, you find out that the cause was an individual drinking and driving. Then, hey, that news authority has to say, and in other news. So it's become a norm. But man, try to end this year on a positive note. Not planning a funeral and not trying to gather some money together to get someone out of jail. Look, I have my Grinch glove on. Don't be a Grinch. Don't be a Grinch. Find somebody else to drive that vehicle. Look, Dr. Cofield is looking like, man, where can I get a glove like that?
Well, I tell you what, I want to thank both of you for being with us on today. It's amazing because, I have friends, I have, family members who have been in this situation, who have had licenses suspended.
Same here.
They have not taken anybody's life or anything like that, but I've seen the tragic consequences of
Yes.
drinking while intoxicated. And as you said, it is avoidable. And so, I just hope and pray that we'll end this year in the best possible way. But I want to thank both of you for being with me on today on Real World, Real Talk. I appreciate it. And we'll have to have you come back soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
No problem.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cofield.
So the late Vernon John said, if you see a good fight, get in it. I always add, if you don't see a good fight, start one. And sometimes you're going to have to fight around this area of driving while intoxicated. Now, that fight might be personal in terms of disciplining yourself, in terms of you being able to recognize and say, no, I'm not okay to drive. No, it's not a bother. Hey, here are my keys. Sometimes it might be a fight with a friend where you have to take their keys and say, no, listen, I'm going to drive you home and somebody's going to follow us and I'll get a ride back. Don't worry. Or I'll Uber back. But make sure that those who are around you and make sure you stay safe this week. Two things that stuck with me this show, and I don't want you to lose these two facts. One, the average person drives 80 times before they have their first arrest for driving while intoxicated. 80 times. Man, that's a scary number. Here's the second one. $10,000 to $17,000. That's how much you're going to spend when you are arrested for driving while intoxicated. $10,000 to $17,000. Now, there are probably some really, really expensive drinks out there. There's some expensive drugs out there. I don't know how many of them cost you $10,000 to $17,000, but that's too big a bill to have to pay for a momentary buzz. So please, ma'am, please, sir, make sure you make great decisions. This is Dr. DZ Cofield for Real World, Real Talk signing off. Have a happy holiday. God bless and God be with you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Real World, Real Talk. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast to be notified of new episodes every week. Follow us via social media using the @RWRTDZ username on all platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. To submit any comments, questions, sponsor opportunities, or future show suggestions, visit us online at rwrtdz.com or via email at info@rwrtdz.com. Thank you for listening, and we hope you've been inspired to be the change you want to see in the world today. Until next time, be real, keep it real, and stay real.